episode 8 of Amateurish the Podcast. In other words, they gave these guys a podcast where we cover all things basketball. I'm Rhett.
I'm Logan. On today's episode, we're going to go over the NBA Finals just wrapped up this past week. Monty Williams was just let go by the Pistons, so we'll touch on that. And then we're going to go over ESPN's top 20 free agents as free agency looms. Anything you want to say before we get right into it?
Other than we're under a heat dome, so if you see me start to schwitz, that's why.
Okay, so we'll start off. The NBA Finals just concluded, 5-game series, but it really wasn't ever close. There wasn't a singular, really memorable game or moment. What do you think about the series and how this bodes for the future of the NBA?
I'm not sure you can really read a lot into it. The Celtics were the best team all year.
Unfortunately, yes.
You just have to give them their due. Their top six is better than anybody else's top six, and it's not that close. I don't know if this is the start of a dynasty because they're young in certain key positions. They're locked up for several years, but they were also very, very lucky with injuries.
And Kristaps, but
yeah. That was at the end, and
they won without him.
Right. And you kind of wonder if he's injured, could they still win with that core five?
100%. I think they're the only team in the NBA that they don't, Kristaps was out and they still won.
Yeah.
But so what do you think? We said going into it that with the conference finals group where there's going to be a new face of the NBA, but I think I'll have to walk back on that given Tatum's finals performance and how he didn't get the MVP. How do you feel about Tatum being, the face of the NBA, or at least the American face of the NBA?
Well, he's not a young pup.
He's 25. 26.
But he's been in the league, 6-7 years now? He's been to the finals before. Everybody thinks he's a wonderful player. And as I understood it, the voting was 6'5" Brown, Tatum.
But I think Brown deserved it over Tatum, to be honest with you.
And sure, but if they'd given it to Tatum, I don't think there would have been a huge squawk.
Twitter might have gone crazy.
Twitter always goes crazy.
That's true.
It's X now, by the way. I don't know that I was so in on this as the new face of the NBA.
Well, I'm saying we had Luka, Tatum, Halliburton to a lesser extent, and Ant. I felt like the winner of the finals was going to be kind of crowned the new face, especially if it was Luka, Tatum, or Ant. But I don't know anymore considering Tatum's finals performance.
As good as he is, and he's very, very good, Tatum. I don't see this overwhelming love or hate for him. I mean, you love Ant, you love Ja. A lot of people either love Luka or hate him.
No. You're not that active on social media. Everyone hates Tatum right now.
Okay,
they call him the most uncharismatic superstar.
That's also some Celtics hate.
And maybe that's just my For You page because of how the algorithm knows. But all in all, I think this finals was not a great experience. And even as a Heat fan, I think the last two finals have not been a great experience. Both were not very competitive, and both didn't feel as grand of an event as I hoped they would. It's the finals. I want the trophy on the court, in the mid-court.
Yeah.
I want finals written everywhere. I want these great player intros, and they just didn't have that magic. It felt more regular than extraordinary. And I think that also had to do with some coverage. The halftime shows with Stephen A. Smith weren't great. Some segments, the talk shows weren't even covering the game. They were talking about some random other stuff. And then that all mixed with the games not being very competitive or memorable led to a lackluster finals for everyone except for the Celtics fans. And I do have to give a PSA to the Celtics fans. Congratulations. You finally won it. About time. Second championship since the Berlin Wall. Enjoy this. Hopefully there will not be another one, but you guys have your moment. You guys have the next 12 months. That's that.
Do they win it if Drew Holiday doesn't fall in their lap.
No, because Kristaps, I really think 95% of teams don't win with like Kristaps. I just think the Celtics were that good that like he just added. Like he barely played in the
Right.
playoffs. And we know I said before the season they can't trust on him, rely on him with how injury prone he was. It didn't matter that's how good they were, but they shouldn't have relied on him. Drew Holiday is the same team besides Kristaps and Drew, and then Kristaps I didn't really think moved the needle. Drew 100% did, especially his defense on Kyrie.
So if you're the Bucks, if you knew that the consequence of trading Drew was he was going to the Celtics, do you still make the trade for Dame?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what their expectation. I mean, no, I don't think you want no, 100% no.
Uh,
But you don't know how the inner workings of the front office works, what their views were on Drew. But yeah, I'm not gonna say the Celtics. I mean, the Bucks gave them the championship by any stretch, but yeah,
Certainly helped.
definitely helps.
Certainly
All right,
helped.
one last thing about the finals. With these two teams, how do you see them moving forward? So, do you think the Celtics have a chance to repeat?
Yeah.
And with the Mavs, do you run it back? What do you? I want to hear your thoughts on those two teams and their futures.
Well, the thing with the Celtics is, yes, they bucked two trends, by the way. One is they had a lot of guys who played a lot of minutes going late. Finals 2 years ago, Eastern Conference Finals last year, finals this year. Usually you see guys just they can't maintain that. They did. They're young, but they did. Al Horford was pretty available almost all season. Kristaps was available until the very end. Um, so that bucked a trend. It also bucked a trend of a young coach winning. It's just Missoula's second
Yeah,
year.
and he's a good coach, but I don't think he was the biggest difference. I'm all no disrespect to Jason Kidd, but I don't think there was much chess going on. It was more checkers.
Yeah, and I don't think that too many people favored the Mavs.
Yeah,
Yeah, they could have gotten on a heater and Luca could have gone nuts, but it's asking a lot at that stage of the season. Remember, he played a lot in the summer prior to it. Um, I the Celtics are interesting because you've got a couple dynamics. One, they're not deep. They go 6 deep. I know Pritchard and Hauser can fill a role, but if they're playing extended minutes, it's a problem. They don't have a lot of front court depth. Al Horford is nearing the end of when you would expect him to play. He's still very productive. And Kristaps is a perennial injury concern. You've got that. You have the reported previous strife between Brown and Tatum.
that's
Okay, but does the MVP vote for the finals?
it didn't matter.
Okay.
No, we're not gonna speculate about that. But one thing to consider is they got two very important pieces that will are not gonna take a rest anytime soon in Tatum and Holiday on Team USA.
Yeah.
And they're gonna the Olympics and then right back into it. So I wonder if this fatigue will ever catch up to them. And then with the Mavs, so what do you think? You think just run it right back, or I mean, they were the
They
5 seed though.
they don't have a choice. They
I
don't
know
have
the roster construction with the contracts, but you don't try to.
who. What can you move?
I don't know, man. I just don't think. Obviously, they made it to the finals, but like, I don't love the surrounding pieces surrounding Luke and Kyrie.
I mean, maybe you could concoct a trade pre. I think there'll be a second apron team pre deadline package Derek Lively and a Tim Hardaway for a
They're not getting
piece.
rid of live.
But that's it.
Yeah, they're kind of stuck right now.
Kyrie
So what
can't
do you
move.
think? What do you think they're? How do you like them going into next year?
I think they're variable. I think it depends on Kyrie's level of health and commitment, Luca's level of health, not his commitment, and then how they continue to gel. Do they bring back a Derek Jones Jr., who's a key piece for them? I don't know. I don't think they have as much chance as the Celtics do
100%.
getting back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so that was the finals. Little recap. Our thoughts on that. So just this morning we heard a little Woj bomb, big Woj bomb. There's a new head coaching vacancy in the NBA with the Pistons letting go Monty Williams after just 1 year, and they owe him a lot of money.
65 million.
65 mil.
Now, sometimes that's tempered if he takes another job. Is there some relief
Yeah.
there? That depends on the
Regardless, they're going to
contract.
be paying him out some money. And
Yes.
we had said a couple episodes prior that we thought he was going to get another year, at least, especially considering the contract, and then boom. So, what do you? Two questions: Pistons. Who you think they should look for, and where you think Monty goes? Lakers.
Wow, that's interesting. I think he's had chances at that job in LA, and they've passed for whatever reason.
There's only two vacancies open for him: Cavs and Lakers.
I think he's going to sit out.
You think he'll sit? I mean, I know his wife had some health issues, but he was gonna sit out, but he decided not to.
I mean, you go young. You go with a young coach.
I think the Pistons should get a first time coach. I don't think they go to a recycled head coach. I think they should get someone chip on their shoulder, young, because their core is so young that can kind of relate a little bit more.
Well, I don't know necessarily a first time coach, but you've got two first time coaches that were just fired this year in Darvin Ham and Adrian Griffin.
Yeah, but I still think even younger, maybe a top assistant around the league.
Yeah, the problem with the Pistons is they've got a ton of money in free agency, and I think they're going to spend it and push them into the tax. Lord knows why, because they're not ready to compete. I don't know why management did this, other than
it was said that it was an ownership level decision, so they went above the GM's head.
But I think the purpose was to give Trajan Langdon a clean slate. The problem is he doesn't have a clean slate. He's got a roster.
Yeah.
So if it was all about letting Trajan Langdon make the next head coaching pick, wow! Because that next head coach, what's his life expectancy? I mean,
yeah, I mean Monty is two-time coach of the year, and he only got a year.
Yeah.
So, and I know, I mean, they were not successful at all, but only a year is crazy.
It was a shock, and I don't see where they can go spend any money on coaching. That would be a mistake in my mind.
But we do have there's some big questions going into this summer now that the finals are wrapped up, and that starts with free agency.
Right.
So ESPN made a list pretty recently of their top 20 free agents. They ranked them. We're going to dive into that ranking, whether we agree with the rankings, and also just focus on the player, what he should do, what we think he'll do. So you ready to get right into it?
Yeah, I think this is the Kevin Pelton list, and Kevin Pelton's a big analytical guy, and I think he based it on wins above replacement.
He did, yeah.
I saw another site do where are this same list, where are they going to go predictions. I think you have to start though with a couple factors. One, if a team is in the luxury tax but below the second apron, they can still aggregate contracts. They can still take in more money. But if you're at or above the second apron, you can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
So they're out of the free agent picture totally.
Yeah.
Even if you want to shed guys, it's not going to be easy. So the teams with space, at least some space and the potential to add space, are Charlotte, Chicago potentially, Philly has the most space, Orlando, OKC, Utah, and potentially Toronto if they decline the Bruce Brown team option.
So let's get into this players and see where they can land on some of those teams. So number one, they had LeBron James, who has a player option. I mean, it's LeBron James. This is not the most stacked free agency class, so I agree with him at number one. But the question is, what's he gonna do, and how long he's gonna wait, and if his decision depends on where Bronny goes.
Yeah, this is all LeBron's decision. and
Yeah.
and everything you hear is his family's in L.A., his home's in L.A., his businesses are mostly in
Yeah.
L.A.
Then boom, Bronny gets drafted to the Cavs. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think if he wants to play for a team like the Cavs, like Miami, like the Knicks, teams that would be in the hunt for a title, he would have to take a massive pay cut,
Yeah.
and all those teams would welcome
Yeah,
him,
of course.
embrace him. Uh, I don't see it happening.
Yeah. I
I'd be
think
stunned.
I think he'll retire a Laker. My only question is if Bronny potentially goes to another team, that's like uh surprising, but I think he'll pick up the option.
Yeah, I'd be
Yeah.
shocked. Now the nuance here is if he negotiates an extension, opts out, negotiates an extension, it could free up some relief for the
Yeah.
Lakers and
But I
create
think
some
at this
room.
point in his career, he's only signing 1 year deals. He's not looking extension.
But I think he can sign a 1+1 and still help them out. He's the option is around 50 million, and if he said, "Okay, I'll take 40," it would potentially free up some space. The problem with the Lakers, we're going to see later on, is one of the players has a player option, and I don't know if.
I think that player will pick up that option.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's going to test the waters. We'll get to him in a minute.
Number 2 on the list was Paul George, who also has a player opt-in. I expect him to opt out of this. There's been a lot of talks about him to the Sixers. They even had Embiid and Paul George on the halftime show of the finals, and there was some tampering going on there. I expect him to opt out. Um, Whether he remains a Clipper or not, I think is 50-50. But he's getting up there.
Well, a couple things to keep in mind. His options around in the 40s. He's eligible for a 4-year, $220 million deal with LA, but does LA want to commit to years 3 and certainly year 4? When your compadre Kawhi Leonard
It's,
signed a 3-year 150, and that sort of signals, okay, Kawhi would be close to 37, 38 then. That's probably the last contract he'll sign.
yeah,
I don't get. Yes, Philly can offer him 4 years.
Philly has the space, as
They
you
have
said.
the space, and it'd be an attractive pairing: Embiid, Maxi,
PG.
and PG. But the problem is that would be another team that has no depth. I mean, no depth whatsoever, because the only guys under contract basically are Embiid, Maxi. There's an issue there, and then Ricky Council, the fourth, I think, is under contract. Um, and why would PG, from everything I've heard, why would he want to leave his home in California?
I know. I'm just saying what there's been rumors, and I don't know. I don't think it's tricky. The Clippers are kind of one of those teams that are really, really stuck. There's not a clear trajectory that they're on right now.
Would you, if you're the Sixers, give him the 4-year, $200 million plus deal?
My only concern from the Sixers are we going down the Suns path where we're going all in on our 3 dudes, and the rest of the team is
Two of whom aren't going to be available
yeah all
all
year.
year.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. And speaking of a Sixer, number 3 is Tyrese Maxey, who is restricted. He's a restricted free agent, and he's not eligible for that much money because of his deal.
Yeah.
So I think the Sixers will 100% match. There's no chance. I don't think there's a chance that he's not a Sixer next year.
Yeah, and I don't.
He's so affordable,
I mean, yeah,
and he's 23.
talent wise, he belongs at number 3 on this list. No question. But this is a done deal.
Yeah.
The Sixers are just waiting. They'll spend their money, whether it's the one star, the Paul George, or several little guys, not little guys, but several lesser free agents, and then they'll exceed the cap to sign Maxi.
Yeah. But I think that's a done deal. Number 4, we have Emmanuel Quickly from the Raptors, who's also a restricted free agent. He really picked it up after being traded from the Knicks to the Raptors. I will expect them to match it, especially given how he played in the Raptors uniform.
Here's the question I have. Obviously, that trade for OG
Mm-hmm.
uh, quickly was the centerpiece of that trade
The Raptors.
for the
Yeah,
Raptors. So I don't think you trade him for a 1 year rental or a half year rental.
yeah.
That doesn't make sense. And I think, yeah, long term he projects. He had 19 and like 6 assists. He can
With
be
the
a,
Raptors.
with the Raptors. He can be a lead guard. The problem I have is the vision in Toronto, where you've said, okay, Scotty Barnes is our creator. He's our lead guard. Well, so is Quickly. They don't play the same style. They're not at all. Not what I'm saying. But will that offense work together? And do they want so much of their salary cap tied up in two creator, lead guard types, even though again Scotty Barnes is
Yeah.
a different player.
I mean, I think it all depends on how they view Quickly. I think we know how they view Scotty. Their coach said he's going to be the face of this league. Um, it depends on how they view Quickly, but I think that's a pretty good move, locking those two dudes up while they're young.
Yeah, and I think you've got some potential in Quickly to move him. He's not a max guy.
No,
He's going to get a nice contract, nice payday. Um, so yeah, I think 90+% he goes back to Toronto, but he's a guy that they may want to move on down the road.
yeah. All right, so moving on, we have James Harden, number 5. He is an unrestricted free agent, and this is tricky. I think, and the PG move will have a little domino effect on what happens with James.
100%. If PG goes elsewhere,
Mm-hmm.
they have to resign Harden.
Yeah.
They have to because they're opening that new
I
building.
mean, he's an unrestricted free agent, though.
But I'll be honest.
You don't think he has any looks anywhere else, really?
I don't know why he's at number 5 on this list.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen consistently at the end of each of the last couple seasons, he's not the same player.
No.
Yes, for that stretch when he bought in and the Clippers were all healthy, they were a very good team. And I think that's going to fool them a little bit.
Yeah.
But down the stretch, he was averaging 13 points a game and his shot was off. And yes, he's a shot creator, but he's a unique shot creator.
And he's also 34.
And he's 34.
But yeah, I doubt that he has a ton of looks elsewhere. I don't think there's
Right.
a lot of teams want to add him.
One of the teams with money, Philly, is not taking him back.
No shot.
Does he fit in an Orlando? Is Orlando say okay?
No, I think if PG goes, he'll resign with the Clippers most likely.
Yeah.
Great. Number 6, I think, is the most questionable ranking on this list, and that's another Sixer.
Yeah.
DeAnthony Melton, who's an unrestricted free agent. Putting him at 6 is
ahead of
a ton of guys.
Yeah.
Like I would honestly put him probably at 20 on this list, or maybe 18.
I think he's got a little more value because
he's a decent starter.
Right.
But he's not like there's guys on this list that have past all-stars or even current all-stars. Like
yeah. I mean, he averaged 11, 4, and 3.
Yeah, but I mean, he makes his money on the other end.
Yeah, he's a good defender. He's not a 3-and-D guy.
No.
He's an average 3-point shooter. He didn't play a full season. They never counted on him to be the guy.
I really don't understand his ranking on the list. I think he'll just be he'll get a nice contract somewhere. It wouldn't surprise me if Philly re-signs him, but it depends on what they're trying to do with other guys. But I really it's a questionable placement because he's not gonna command a big contract like other guys on the list who broke out. He's a known quantity. I think he's getting a decent role player contract.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree there. I was looking at some other places he might fit in. Orlando, I think he's a little too similar to Jalen Suggs. Um, Brooklyn, they don't have a point guard, but I'm not sure he's a point guard. A team like the Spurs, which don't have a
No,
ton of money,
I think he would be a
it's
nice addition to a contender. I think that's the
yes,
type of player he is, where
absolutely, absolutely.
he helps. He's a good role player.
Yeah.
But number 7 is Pascal Siakam, who's unrestricted, but he's gonna re-sign with the Pacers. This new free agency caveat, which allows some players to have a little head start, and he plans to re-sign. And I would have had him above Melton.
Sure, and he's still young.
Yeah, he had a good season with the Pacers. The Pacers are bright future,
they couldn't afford not to re-sign him,
especially after a half-year rental.
right? And going back to Melton, it's a question if the Sixers don't land, I don't know, PG, I don't know who else.
Mm-hmm.
If they can't sign a guy like that, then they might sign, Melton and a couple other guys.
Yeah, but all right. So moving on to 8, we have the counterpart to the Emmanuel Quickly trade. We have OG Anunoby, who has a player option.
Right.
I fully expect him to pick this up.
It's a $20 million option. Okay.
I don't think he showed enough this year to command a huge contract on the free agency market.
No, I would disagree. I
Yeah?
know. I mean, he's the ultimate 3-and-D guy.
No, he's great at what he does, but I don't think what he does is worth a huge contract. And I think the Knicks would like to re-sign him. I mean, I don't know. He doesn't really show a lot of emotion. I don't know what he's feeling about New York, but
The problem with him is there's not a ton of money out there. Is the issue.
yeah, I mean, we have all these teams in the second apron.
But I think he signs for more with the Knicks, because they can go above. If he's a free agent, they'll have some room to work and to re-sign him. Like for instance, he doesn't fit necessarily in Orlando.
No, there's a few teams he fits, and like I said, similar to Melton, they're contenders. You
Right.
know?
But he's more than a.
No, he's better than Melton, 100%.
Yeah.
But I think he has a good fit on the Knicks, and they made it to the what semifinals,
Second,
but
yeah.
with the most freaking
They were
banged up
devastating.
team ever. If I'm the Knicks, I want to run it back right away, and hopefully OG's bought into that.
Yeah, I just don't know if he takes that player option. I think he's going to maybe test it. The problem with OG is availability. He averages.
And playing for Thibs is.
It's tough. He averages like 57 games a year, something around there. When he's on the court, plus defender, averages mid-teens, and he's a good 3-point shooter. The Knicks have to re-sign him. Otherwise, they gave up Quickly, Barrett, and other stuff for nothing. So I think they have to do that. The problem then is there's no room for that third star. You'd have to move off of Julius Randle because you're going to want to re-sign Jalen Brunson, and that's not going to be cheap.
No, but that's not this year.
That's not this year, but they could be. He's eligible, I believe.
So number 9 on the list, we have DeMar DeRozan, who's an unrestricted free agent. Now this one, I'm not sure because I think I've mentioned it on prior episodes. Chicago is kind of screwed with. They're a couple years too late from about everything, from contending and also blowing it up.
Yeah.
DeMar, I mean, he's been decent this past couple years. There hasn't been really a big regression yet, but he's getting up there in age. And I don't know what other teams think about him. Other free agencies. I don't know what's a potential landing spot for him.
The Bulls have a really tough spot. One, they don't know what they're going to get out of Lonzo Ball. If anything,
he said he's going to play. He's ready to play.
Okay, fine, but if anything, if ever.
Yeah.
So you can't bank on him. Yes, it's great to hope and he'll be back. You can't move off of the Zach LaVine contract. Vucevic, I believe, is not yet a free agent, and he's
washed.
Impossible to move. There's not much interest in Patrick Williams. There is interest in the Carusos and Kobe Whites,
Mm-hmm.
but for what?
Yeah.
Um, I think a team. Let me throw some scenarios at you. If the Sixers miss on Paul George, is DeRozan a fallback here?
I think it's a decent fit, to be honest with you, but I don't think that. I think Paul George moves the needle a little bit more for them in terms of contending for a title. And no disrespect to DeMar DeRozan, I just don't think that 1-2 punch with Embiid's health. But I think he's a decent fit.
DeRozan's available.
He is. I'm not saying he's the problem. I'm just saying Embiid's health.
Sure.
And the fit is there, but I don't know if you're going to go the Suns route because he's going to get a decent contract with no depth. I don't know if DeRozan is the guy of the three. You know what I mean?
Well, that's going to be another interesting is contract length. He's 35.
But again, I mean, it's coming. Father Time's undefeated, but we haven't seen that big of a regression yet.
No,
he's still pretty freaking productive.
Yeah, he's still very athletic. How he earns his money though isn't beyond the arc.
No, but it's also he does have a bit of an old man game to him, where I think his career could go on longer than projected because he's got pump fakes, turnarounds, YMCA post game.
But I think what you would see here is if Chicago deludes itself into thinking let's run it back, then yeah, I think he possibly resigns with them. I think Philadelphia as a backup to Paul George plan, the Paul George scenario. I think he'd be a fit in Orlando.
That'd be interesting.
Although that doesn't solve their shooting.
No.
But
I don't. Yeah, that'd be interesting though.
He's a shot creator for them, and I think he would help settle everything. And I think also he would be an interesting fit. Going back to the Spurs again, it doesn't solve the shooting problem.
I don't think he goes back to the Spurs.
I don't know.
Nah, he's not going to the Spurs. The spacing isn't there with Wemby. That's not a good fit.
Okay.
But there are some interesting scenarios there. Let's move on to number 10.
But before we leave, are we in agreement Chicago should push the plunger down and blow it up?
They should have done that 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But number 10 is Malik Monk, who's an unrestricted free agent. And I think we can say with certainty that he will be on a new team next year because he had a great year as a sixth man. Where do you see him potentially going? I think he's going to command a pretty lucrative deal.
First of all, Malik Monk is a unicorn of sorts. He's one of the very few players who improved outside really the context of his first 4 years, remade his game.
Yeah.
And then again in Sacramento, remade it again. He career high this year in points, career high in assists, and that's the key. He regressed a little in his 3-point shooting, but not enough that you're like, wow, that's it's a regression to the mean. And he's got to be Rob Pelinka's biggest regret, not signing him. Monk fits in a lot of places. I think he fits in Philly as a plan B.
I mean, we're projecting everyone in Philly at this point.
Well, but again,
I agree with you.
If they don't sign Paul George, where do they commit their money?
No, yeah, you're right.
I think he would fit in San Antonio. Although I think
it depends on who they draft.
Well, I think he can pitch in and play point.
No, dude, it's Malik Monk. He's not a pass first guy. I don't care what the number.
He had 6 assists this year on a team that already has.
You 6 assists.
Yeah, that was the surprise. That's why people were like, "Whoa, wait a second."
Yeah, but it's still, I don't know, man.
He can re-sign with Sacto for 4.
No, he's not
just under 80. I don't think
no.
They have the room. They have the room to re-sign him. And
you said 4 for 80. I think he's going to get a bigger contract than that. To be honest with you.
Okay, but where?
On those 8 teams you're talking about with that space.
He would fit a little bit in OKC, although I think they have other needs.
It wouldn't surprise me though a like a bad team signs him as like their guy, and it's just like a big contract regret. Like we're in 2 years, we say, "Oh, this is the worst contract in the NBA."
Like a Detroit,
No, not Detroit. Like a team, like I'm really like
Charlotte. You could play in Charlotte. He would also fit nicely in Orlando.
I do like the Orlando. I'm trying to think of a team that is an example here. Like how kind of how like we were talking about how Jeremy Grant's contract in Detroit a couple years ago was just an awful contract. Like he was their best player technically, but he's not like a guy who you want as your best player in the
You
team.
mean how it's a great contract now in Portland?
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. But that's kind of what I see could potentially happen. I like the Orlando pick though.
Okay.
Number 11, we have Nick Claxton, who's unrestricted. This is interesting to me.
Yeah, he is one dimensional.
He's
He
good at what he
averaged
does.
12 points a game, all inside.
He's a run and dunk.
He's a rim protecting rim runner. Averaged 10 rebounds, which was a little surprised, and 2 blocks. So he is a
He's a good big
plus
man.
defender.
He's a good big man.
Yeah. But he's 6'11", 215
Yeah, but it's not like we're not asking him
to guard Jokic.
bang with Embiid though. He's not. I like him. I think he has a good future. I just don't think he's not like a starter on a championship team. He's a decent big man.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if he re-signs with Brooklyn. I think they're pretty high on him, and he's still young.
It's true.
But I don't think he goes anywhere, especially like a solidified playoff team, really, because he doesn't really have a fit anywhere on those teams. You're kind of saying.
A team that he could fit with, and this is sort of draft dependent, is a Washington because they don't have a center. He'd be a nice addition.
Yeah, I could see that happening.
I would throw a lot of money. He's young. He fits sort of in your timeline, and you can always move on him. But I think in the draft, you've got Sarr, Klingon, Kalel Ware. Potentially beyond that, you've got
Edie.
Edie-ish. And then, depending on what the Hawks do, Clint Capella could be available. So you're going to have
a decent
guys like him.
Yeah.
And you're the Nets. You're not close to contending.
That's what I'm saying, but I just don't see him on many other teams like that.
So you're going to commit your money to Claxton.
But also you have to, what are the Nets' expectations? If they want to contend, they got to press the restart button and get every single guy except for maybe Mikal Bridges off the team. So, but if they just want to be mediocre for a year, I don't know what Joe Tsai, like, it depends on what their expectations are. If they just want to kind of do a little improve from last year, yeah, re-sign them. If they think they have a future all of a sudden, then you got to get rid of everybody.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're in a Chicago
type
of situation.
I mean,
but they don't have the assets.
Yeah, not as bad. No.
But they do have an interesting, intriguing guy in Day'Ron Sharpe, who's not Claxton, but does some of similar.
Yeah.
At a cheaper, couldn't you pair him? They don't have a draft pick, by the way, this year, not one. So I just don't know. Or is your vision Bridges, Claxton, and Cam Thomas surrounded by?
Let's just say they're all screwed up with their vision.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll be able to get a clearer picture after we see what they do in free agency.
Right.
But moving on, again, another Sixer. I feel like this list is littered with Sixers. We have number 12, Tobias Harris, who's unrestricted. I think there is a negligible chance that he's a Sixer next year.
I think there's a 0.0.0.
Philly fans?
He's run his race.
Philly fans are sick of him in year 5. Yeah. I think he's sick of Philly. His production has gotten downhill.
I mean, he averaged 17 and 6. That doesn't grow on trees.
But it's like, okay, and I really hope Tobias Harris's dad isn't watching and attack
or him.
No, but it's his dad.
What about Boban?
Boban.
Yeah, let's
John Wick Boban. We saw what he did in John Wick.
Very careful with your next comment.
17-4, you said?
Six.
6. He's putting up Andre Drummond level numbers in terms of does it matter?
Yeah.
Empty numbers, dude. If the efficiency isn't great, he had 0 in a playoff game this year.
Yeah.
And I you know, early on he was good in the Sixers. He was good in the Magic. I'm not a Tobias Harris hater. I just think this pairing should end and they should go their separate ways for the better for both parties.
Yeah. You know, I'm gonna throw a stat at you.
Okay.
He's 31.
I mean, what do you think? Or
I mean, the years he's been in the league, you think he's, 35.
yeah, that is a little younger, but
And he's getting a big check from Philly. He's not going to get anywhere near that check. He's not going to get anywhere near that check now unless he restores his value. I it's going to be tough, and we'll talk about it at the very end. How I think we're going to see a trend towards some guys who can still play in the NBA,
yeah,
not just can play,
are good players.
that are going to go overseas, and I want to touch on that at the very end.
Yeah, but I agree with you.
It's not him.
Okay, but I'm just saying I think there's a mutual divorce for both parties. Going on to number 13, we have Gary Trent, who's an unrestricted free agent, another Toronto Raptor on this list. We know what he is. He is a shooter. The fit in Toronto isn't the best with I think how they're using him. A little bit more on ball than off ball, but I mean I think we both can agree he's a off the bench scorer. So what would you expect him to do, or teams to come at him with?
Well, Toronto needs shooting, but I think they were a little irked when he picked up his player option last year, and they didn't want that. So I don't think there's a fit going forward. He's young. I think he's just 25. I think teams like the Spurs need shooting, Orlando needs shooting, OKC needs shooting. They could all take him on a team friendly contract. He might have to take a prove it contract. I think he's above a mid level exception type deal, but not much. So I don't know. He's got options, but I don't think he's going to be one of the first guys signed.
No, I think we're on the same page. 14, we have Gary Payton, who has a player option. He's been injured a lot these past 2 years. 14 is a very questionable ranking. Now that I'm looking at it,
I would not have him on this list at all.
I don't think he's even an honorable mention.
No, the deadline to exercise his player option is when we shoot it today, the 19th of June. So we might have an update.
Add a little graphic.
Other than that one magical season in Golden State.
But even then, I wouldn't have him on my top 20 if he was a free agent then, because he was a good off the bench player. But
he's a young 30s. I think he's 31. He doesn't score. He can't be a lead guard.
He's just a good defender.
He's a good defender.
I mean, he's a really good defender.
He's a really good defender.
But no, 14 is a crazy. And I know he's basing on a wins above replacement, but if I'm him, I'd pick up this player option, especially because he hasn't done anything in 2 years with his injuries.
Yeah.
Number 15 is a guy we referenced earlier on, D'Angelo Russell, who has a player option, I think, for just under 20 mil. If I'm not mistaken.
It's 18.9,
which is kind of like the points he averaged. He averaged
yeah, exactly.
A million per point. If I'm him, I pick this up because even though he had a decent year statistically, the consistency was a big concern. The Lakers' usage of him and his relationship with the front office and Darvin Ham, who's not there anymore, brings questions about him. And I don't think he's going to get 18, 20 million in free agency.
If you're the Lakers and you had it was a team option, not a player option, no. You exercise it.
No. He's going to have to do what you just said the Gary Trent did. Like, they're going to be, come on, D'Lo, but no, I'm getting my money, dude.
Yeah, the only issue here is I've seen, first of all, he shot a career high this year.
His numbers were good. but he had those consistency issues of stretches where it's like he was benched.
Yeah, and he's very young. He's just 28. People forget that.
Crazy, dude.
Forget how much he's been through and teams he's been on.
Yeah.
The Nets, the
No,
Warriors.
I mean he still has things to give. And I still think he's a good NBA player. The numbers show it, but just this year, even though it was good numerical production, I don't think this year really helped his stock.
I don't. I think it did. I think it did, but there wasn't much. He couldn't have gotten much lower. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Not that he's disruptive or anything like that. They just people
Well,
saw
I
him
mean
as
that's what the Lakers kind of do to people, dude. Like what they did to Russ. Like you just get this horrible reputation there because I think it's because the coverage is so focused, micro focused on you that anything you do is like i- under a microscope. And it's really hard to succeed when you're under a microscope like that.
and remember, I think LeBron blamed him, not directly, maybe implicitly, for some of the bad performances in the early part of the Denver series. Um, I've seen a lot of people say he goes to Orlando. Is that a
No,
fit?
because I feel like he's very similar to a couple of guys that have there. One that's on this list in terms of not in terms of production, but kind of skill set. I think they play semi similar. And they're so guard heavy right now.
Hang on.
Orlando's really clogged right now. I think for them they should get a big man. Paolo's your future, right?
Right,
He's your four. He's your four.
right.
Who's your big?
Yes, they need a big.
Okay, but then you're all in on Jalen Suggs as a defensive first point guard,
Right,
right?
but he does.
Franz Wagner's your three,
Right.
so you're two and you're five.
They need shooting more than they need a big. They have bodies. They
Yeah,
have
I know,
the
but I don't
Isaacs.
think D'Lo is like the shooter that you're like. He's an off the dribble shooter, and you want guys that can space around Paolo and Franz, uh, in the corners and on the wings.
Well, it's going to be interesting because Paolo has said, "I don't want to be the the point forward here."
But he's gonna have the ball in his hands a lot of times. He's
Sure.
gonna attract the most double teams,
I mean,
which is why I say the spacing around him.
you forget they still have Wendell Carter.
Yeah, but he's like other guys on this list where it's like,
I'm not saying I agree
yeah,
with his fit. I don't know what he does. I think if he does resign and I'm the Lakers, I try to sign and trade him somewhere.
yeah. But I just think if I'm him, I pick up the option.
Okay, it's borderline.
Number 16, Miles Bridges, unrestricted. There's two questions I have here. Is Are other teams of Charlotte's thinking where they don't care about his criminal stuff going on?
Well, I think it's behind him.
It's behind him, but like, dude, he shouldn't be in the NBA. That's my personal opinion. Um, um, I know he missed a year, but I mean, he's a good player. He's I unrestricted, so he'll get a good amount of money for his stats alone. He doesn't do anything for me.
Can Charlotte afford to let him walk?
What is Charlotte's goal? Okay, because Miles Bridges um, is not the player. He's not gonna like get you over the hump.
No.
I think he has a bit of empty numbers in his game.
Okay, fair.
Granted, he's been in Charlotte his whole career, so he hasn't had a chance to say otherwise. But what is Charlotte's expectation? We know how they feel about Lamelo. Mark Williams is a good piece. Everything else is like you got rid of PJ Washington, and look how good he was doing over there, in Dallas. So, what are your expectations? Do you want to build around Miles Bridges? I mean, you have Brandon Miller, who I think you want to focus more on. I just think I wouldn't resign him from Hornets.
Yeah, I think
They shouldn't have re-signed him after the whole domestic violence issue. To be frank,
he fits in Detroit. Going back, uh,
yeah, it's not bad.
going back to Michigan, they have an opening for that type of player.
I agree with you. That's not a bad shout.
I'm willing hopefully see that he's built on his mistakes. He's cost himself a lot of money because remember he was
He had
in
a big
line.
year, yeah.
He was in line to sign a
Mm,
20 million
yeah.
dollar a year contract. He's not getting that this year.
But I like the Detroit shout. But we'll move on to 17. We have Buddy Hield, who is an unrestricted free agent. Another Sixer on this list. Man, the Sixers have nobody under contract. Um, we know what Hield is, and that's one word: a shooter. He doesn't provide really anything else,
Right.
but he is a very good shooter.
And he's durable. He
Yeah,
played
Eight.
84 games last year, which is almost mathematically impossible.
The only way it could happen is if what happened to him.
Right. Um, he is a guy that has been linked to. First of all, I think his run in Philly is over
Mhm.
unless we're talking Plan B.
I
He
think unless
never
we're talking also like a mid-level exception type contract. Because I think in his mind he's getting a lot more than Philly wants to offer him.
right.
But I mean, yeah,
Well, he's been linked for years with the Lakers,
they do need some shooting.
and they do need some shooting. I
I
They don't
cannot.
have a lot of money
Yeah,
now. If D'Angelo Russell declines his option, yes, they'll have some money.
yeah.
Um,
If he goes to the Lakers, Twitter's gonna or X is gonna be.
they will have won the offseason.
Well, they have ESPN will say they'll won the offseason, but once he has a couple bad shooting performances, social media is gonna be hilarious.
I think he fits in a lot of these teams we talked about that need shooting.
I mean, he's kind of a slot in player. He doesn't do much except for shooting, and
Right.
every team can kind of use that.
Spurs, they have 20
Yeah.
million to spend.
I just
I think they take this and the next guy on the list and call it a day.
the Spurs. Well, they got to get rid of his brother because that's 18. We have Tyus Jones, who's an unrestricted free agent. The better Jones brother, and I think he's a great fit for San Antonio if he wants to reunite with Trey. His first year as a starter in Washington, he put up decent numbers. Granted, it was in Washington.
But he showed in Memphis as a
Yeah,
backup.
he was a good backup in Memphis behind Ja.
Whenever Ja wasn't available, he had some really big games.
Yeah, I think he's a good NBA point guard. You know,
he's a guy. I mean, he's not going to light the scoreboard up.
No, but
he'll run a team.
He's not messing up.
No, he doesn't.
I would describe him as reliable.
Exactly. He's very reliable. Runs the team. Late in his career, he's going to be in places as a backup.
Yeah. He's going to have a long NBA career. I mean, he's already had a pretty good one.
Yeah, and he's been linked with the Spurs. The Spurs need two things. They need shooting. In my mind, they need three, but they need shooting, and they need a point guard.
Yes.
Right. And this is the most.
He fits those, and he's there.
He plugs in right away, and he shouldn't kill their cap space. They have about 20 million, depending if they make some moves or not. So I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't know why Washington would re-sign him.
We don't know what Washington's thinking.
Well, I don't know that I want to know what Washington's thinking. If they don't re-sign him, they need a point guard quick.
Yeah. But number 19, we have Isaiah Hartenstein, who's an unrestricted free agent. Now, will his value go up now that we know he's a black man? No, I'm joking. I think he's a good piece for the Knicks. He had a really good season. Defensively, he kind of came into his own.
Yep.
If I'm the Knicks, I'm running it back, and he's a part of my future. I'm trying to get him under contract, especially with Mr. Robinson's various health issues. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I compared him with Claxton, and I think Claxton's a slightly better rim protector. I mean, he's a better rim protector, but Hartenstein is, I think, a little more fluid on offense and switches as well as anybody his size. He's very young. He's just 28, I believe. But
that's not very young.
Well, it's I'm sorry, 26. I was surprised he was this low, given how he kept creeping up.
I would have put him over a couple guys. I don't really have an issue.
Okay.
Of the list, this is like towards the end of my concerns with the
No,
rankings.
I understand. I'm not going crazy saying he should have been a top 10 guy. No. But the Knicks can, as I understand it, re sign OG and Hartenstein. That's it. They're done. They do have a lot of draft capital, but I think that would push them pretty close to the second apron, and it'd be hard for them to use that draft capital to get a guy, unless you're talking a Randall plus several picks for a guy. Um, I he makes a lot of sense in a lot of places. I think he makes sense. For my mind, I said the Spurs need three things. I think one of them is a big. Not that Wemby isn't a
I know
tremendous
you've been
big,
on that where you kind of like cling in there, where just to relieve Wemby a little bit. And I
and
can see the vision.
same in OKC. Uh,
Yeah, I agree.
he's a reliable, high IQ defender. Hasn't played extended minutes, and so I'd like to see it. Was this season a mirage,
Yeah.
or is he really that guy?
And the last guy on the list, number 20, we have Markel Fultz, who's an unrestricted free agent. And man, you got to feel bad for Fultz, just given his luck throughout his career. Did not have the best year for Orlando. I mean,
Fultz averages 22 minutes a game. He was 8 points, terrible from three. His career high a few years ago was 14 points. He's not an outside threat. He doesn't really run teams. I, it, I'm sure some team will be tempted again by his combination of youth and athleticism.
post ACL surgery though.
Yeah, it's another year removed. Um, I think some team will be tempted to take a low dollar flyer on him,
Yeah,
but I don't think Fultz is long for the league, and I couldn't make a credible case why he's on there apart from youth. Um, there are guys out there, Clay Thompson, KCP, uh, Bogdanovich potentially if
which
he's
one?
the New York,
Yeah, he can't even play for New York. Really, it's crazy.
and I think there's an option in play there. Bruce Brown, Jonas Valanciunas. These are
Yeah,
productive
yeah, and I would
guys.
have put them over a couple guys on this list.
Yeah.
We won't really get into detailed with the omissions, what we think they'll do, but um, any final thoughts on the list
Well, I understand how Pelton created the list.
with the wins above replacement?
I don't have a lot of quibble. The Gary Paytons of the world and the Fultzes of the world. Yes, I quibble with those. Um, but I think he did basically encapture everybody. It's hard to project Clay anywhere
Yeah,
and for a
no,
long period of time. KCP is a guy that probably should re-sign with Denver. Here's the interesting thing is I said you're going to see guys leave and go to Europe. I don't know if it's Europe. Right now, do you know who the highest paid player and what that contract is in Europe?
the highest paid player. Let's admit it, Mike James.
Shane Larkin at 4 a year, and it drops. So
There's nowhere. There's not a single league in the world that is close to the NBA in terms of money.
unless there are exceptions of going to China.
But they don't even make like they're in the millions, sure, but not the multi millions.
But I don't think that's going to exist. This second apron, I don't know if the teams didn't have enough time to prepare for it or if they truly understood what they were saying. But we've been used to the 3-star league, right? Ever since the Celtics, the Heatles, 3 stars. Now, I don't know that you can have a 3-star team. You saw how rough it
Except
was.
for the boys in Boston.
Yeah, but they're
Also, one last thing about Boston. I know we're off topic. Um, Leaving your own city and flying to Miami to celebrate is not cool. A, because we don't want you down here, but more importantly, because that's an insult to Boston. If I'm a Boston fan, I'm upset. You don't think Titletown's cool enough to party in? You want to go down to South Beach?
let's be real.
Let's be real. Yeah,
Where do you want to be?
I don't care. Have some pride, Celtics. Hop flight to Miami. You just won a championship. Celebrate in your own city, or go to Vegas. Don't go to your rival city.
Yeah, maybe
BS.
there is a little of that in there. That
No, I think it's because Boston has nowhere to freaking party.
but Miami was the last team to beat the Celtics in a playoff series.
True. And they gave them their best fight.
Yeah. Um, so that was our look back at the top 20. We're about to get into heavy draft coverage, heavy free agency coverage, the basketball tournament.
We
We
got the
love
Olympics
the
coming up.
Olympics
We got a lot of cool things this summer, and I'm excited about. Um, but
and Peach Jam.
yeah, we got some high school coming up in the month of July. But so that was episode 8. We appreciate y'all if you're still listening, for sticking with us and all the support. If you have some hot takes about these free agents, let us know in the comments below, and we will catch y'all on the next episode. Please like and subscribe. Peace.